Hey everybody, I'm Dov.
I'm Nicole.
We're Twin Flame Revolution. We're so excited to be here with you guys for another Raw, right? So this is our TF Raw Revolution at Work series. This is where we're going to talk about our story. We're going to talk about things that impacted us in a little bit of a different tone. And what we're going to be talking about is how the revolution, so the revolution of consciousness, energy, love, frequency, all of the things that we are bringing through our work and through our union, how that energy and how we've done the work in our process, right? How that energy has interchanged and interplayed with us and so on and so forth. So if you're new to our channel and you like what you are hearing and seeing in the videos, please make sure that you subscribe and stay connected so we can continue to grow this community and serve as many of you as possible. It is our deepest heart-centered intention to serve you guys in your process. We get messages from you guys every day about how we have been a part of your process. Some of you have even recently messaged saying that we have assisted in your reunion even just through the videos, and that has just touched us so much, and so we are so grateful for this. So we want to grow this tribe, so like it if you like the videos, share the videos, call people in, ask them to subscribe. Let's create a connection. And if you also new to us and you want more, don't forget our Facebook, okay? Because we do our Sunday sermons on there that we're going to start posting on here also. We have all sorts of goodies, and we tell you guys about what's coming up next in terms of your next steps, how you could work with us, all of those things. We make sure to kind of put posts and updates on there as well. So if you're not fully in the connected community, jump in. We are so excited to have you guys. So today, right, we are going to talk about something that's actually been asked a bunch by you guys, and it's just really important to us, and that is our harmonious union, how we created that. A lot of people ask, was it harmonious? Is it harmonious? And that's kind of a concept that we want to achieve, that harmony, but that harmony really has to be with ourselves, right? And we talked about this in our other video, mastering reunion through mastering reunion with yourself, essentially. And it is not always harmonious, and now we've got to a state where we really have been able to create that amazing balance, but it hasn't always been, I should say. And it was a lot of work, and it fucking sucked, and it was painful, and it went up and down, and that's because we were filled with a whole bunch of our own shit, right? And that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So, we kind of wanted to dive in and go through kind of the cycles we went through and the way it looked, and looking in hindsight, what it meant to us is really important to share that, because there's many of you that question your connection. There's many of you going through some of the same stuff. You feel crazy. You're feeling codependent. You're feeling a lot of different things. And so we always share our stories so that you can identify with parts, and maybe all the questions that you're asking, you may get an answer in here. So when Dov and I met, there was something, and we never share this, but there was something very innocent about my love for you. It wasn't like this, because there was a primal energy after the fact, like this real, like I wanted her. But like in the beginning, I remember there being this innocent child again, this little kid, like really curious about what this being was doing here and why I was so like having this pull to her. And we were friends for 2 years. And then when we started dating, it became so passionate that I remember we couldn't get close enough. There wasn't an act or a thing that was happening in our relationship, including sex, that made me feel close enough, or in the way that I wanted to feel. And so that was the first thing, which was really intense and beautiful, and it was scary, and then from there, it went into, really diving into our own stuff, our own shadow stuff. We were faced with that with each other, which was really intense.
It was
for both of us.
It was. And we talk about this a lot, and when Nicole was saying that, I was even remembering this moment where I had this reading from someone who channeled a message from one of my guides, and this was really early on, and they said, you're going to go through the shadows. You're going to go through the shadows because you choose to. You're going to go through the shadows to refine yourself, and you're going to bring other people through the shadows, right? And this is what we do. We are consciousness activators and mentors and healers, and twin flame mentors and healers, and abundance mentors and healers, and motivational speakers. And this happened because we went so deep, right? The reason that we can serve you through any capacity, through our groups, through our one-on-one work, through any of these things. And actually, if you guys are hopping on, we're going to tell you at the end about, a couple of ways that you can connect with us further, because a lot of you have been asking, what's the next step? What do I do? So we want to make sure to tell you a little bit about that as well. And so, I got that message from my guide, hey, you got to hold on. You got to go through this stuff. You got to go through your own shit. This is how you can serve in what you're going to choose to do in the future, right? And actually, it went even further. And it's interesting that I'm being called to share this message with you guys, because there must be some of you guys out there really needing to hear that. You know, it went even further, and the message was, this was actually placed specifically in your path so that you're going to be able to serve other people. So some of it wasn't even my, it wasn't even a lesson I had to learn, other than I needed to transmute it and look so deeply into myself that I understood how to walk people through that depth, and I understood why these things were happening.
Yes.
So when we came together, having no idea, right? So if you guys are new to us, you know, having no idea, we've said this before, who we were to each other, other than this connection where literally 4 days into the relationship, I am hearing God speak to me, right? And I'm like, what is happening, right? And, you know, hearing all of these things and having all of this intensity and having no idea what's really going on. And harmonious was the furthest word. Everything was this incredible eruption, this volcanic disaster, from incredibly passionate, like Nicole was saying, wanting to be close to each other, to, you know, all of our own shit coming up, our traumas, right? We talked about this in you know, the last video or the video before this, in our separation video and the one before that, like how the addiction just flared up, right? All of these things, because now we were like spotlights on each other's stuff, in the darkness, in the cracks, and this spotlight is coming down and looking at all these parts of us, and we're erupting with all of the shit, right? Yep. And it had nothing to do with our connection. So actually, I'm gonna make a correction in what I said. So at an energetic level, you're all already in this harmonious state. I mean, that's our natural state of being. But what we're talking about, what people kind of think about when they think about harmonious union, is that they're thinking about, oh, this has got to be harmonious in how we interact. So my question is going to be, are you harmonious in how you interact with yourself 100% of the time in the 3D? Because I haven't found a whole lot of people that have really elevated to a, let's even say 90, 80% space where they're there. We've got piles of junk, right? There's so much stuff to move through. So now we're not in a harmonious state with ourselves. We jump into a space together.
Yep.
We've got all this stuff. And as we've said before, Nicole and I had piles of traumas, our superpowers, right? And now they're exploding together.
Yep. And so I went from like this, you know, passionate, can't stay away from you, to all of a sudden all our wounds are coming up, right? And so the next phase was like, oh my God, fix me. Dov, fix me. And I'm looking for her to fix me. And I was like, and I remember like how we look outside of ourselves to make what's going on inside better. And with twin flames, that definitely doesn't work. It only works for but a moment. And then it's like, nope, that's not how this is gonna go, because you have these two mirrors that are so much alike, going through the same thing, maybe different stuff. And there's no comfort in reaching out and like, you have to, no, I had to find a way later on for me to make it okay, for me to get right and connect back to source, for me to connect again with me, for me to be able to learn how to connect with her. And all of it happened together. It wasn't a separate thing, right? Even when I was in separation, it's still, if to be honest with you, the most change that happened was Dov and I were in the trenches together. And the separation was needed because I was at a place where I was like really afraid I wasn't going to be on this planet anymore because of my addiction stuff. And it was really scary for me. So for me, it was like I had to leave. And I didn't totally want to leave. And after I left, I just kept getting pulled back in because that polarization, and the more work Dov did, the more the polarization's going like this. And so our friendship stayed actually during our separation. So I don't know if we talked about this much, and maybe we have. We've talked about it. We didn't totally just separate and not talk. We talked all the time, right? We had our fur babies that we were sharing. You know, actually, when I say that, it makes me sad. It was a sad time. It was really hard, right? So then you're going into the cycle where you're being brought back to yourself. And then when we got back together, even right before we separated, actually, before I go further, I remember when I told Dov I didn't love her, and there were times where I told Dov, like, I'm not into this anymore, I'm not attracted to you, like I wasn't feeling it. And so we all go through this. We go through this, and why do we go through this? Because the way we look at our twin is how we're feeling about ourselves at that time.
Yes.
If you're not really feeling good about yourself and you're not thinking that you're beautiful and sexy and you're not feeling all that, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a really hard time seeing that or feeling that, especially for the masculine. With the feminine, it's a little bit easier for the masculine to go into that space where it's like, I'm resisting now, I gotta go. Can't do this, can't face myself, can't face you, gotta go. And so, but the thing was, in the back of my mind, even though I said I wasn't in love, even though I said, there was still something pulling me, right? That polarization, I felt it. And I was like, damn, I gotta figure something out. What is going on? And during that time, like, I almost died like 6 times, and like, I thought I was gonna have to be hospitalized and go to the psych ward many times. This process has been one of the most painful things I've ever gone through other than my addiction. I guess all of it together was such a deep, painful process. I mean, the yelling and the screaming and the running away, and it was, for a lot of you, I understand that this is like, many of you, I get messages, it's like, I don't really want to do this anymore, right? And so I had been there and then wake up the next day and go, okay, I want to do it. So just know you're going to have those moments where you're just like, oh, and it'll pass. These things are going to pass, right?
Yeah, and the complexity. When I was listening to Nicole, I was thinking about the complexity of the connection. When she's saying how you're going to go through these moments, these seasons, this I don't like you anymore, I do like you, I don't know if I like you that way, all these things, we go through these seasons because of the complexity of the relationship, right? We created an entire, and we created an entire webinar just on starting to touch on really deeply understanding the connection, because it's got so many layers and it is so many different things, right? And that little bit alone, even understanding that more completely, shifts things in a huge way, right? Because there is so much complexity. And so if you're not in love in that moment, or if you are looking to each other, and when Nicole was talking about how the other person's sort of fixing you, now we are each other's teachers, but the way, the tool, I'm going to give you a key, a magic key. When we work on ourselves, so people will come to me and say, I don't know if I want to do this work because, what if, it doesn't work out with my twin? I don't know if I want to do this work because I don't know if and there's all sorts of objections. Or I want to work just because of my twin. Guess what? It begins and ends with you, because they are you and they're a reflection of you, and you are clearing the same templates a lot of the time, and you're doing the same work, and you are creating space, and you are contributing to the distance, and you are contributing, and it is your evolution, and they are your evolution. And so it is always about beginning and ending in your work. And that work starts to create the shift and the space and the possibility, and all of those things start to transform. And let me tell you how much we work. It's actually, sometimes I don't tell people because it's so damn much. And I don't say that because I think like, oh, well, they're going to think, no, I'm proud of how much we work. It's just that when somebody says, do I think I can, I've done some work. I've done a couple months. I've done some work in the past. I've done some work on myself. It's an evolution. So the work is forever. But I dug my hands in so deep, and I worked every single day, and we still work every single day. We work every day to evolve ourselves, to be more gentle and kind with ourselves, to be more gentle and kind with each other. We don't stop growing. If I stopped growing, I've said this before, if Nicole stopped growing, we wouldn't show up anymore for you, right? Because I don't have the right to do that without working and doing everything, taking my own medicine and doing it every single day. And there is work to be done. No matter how much work you've done, there is always work to be done. And I worked hard. I worked for many months, and I leaned on people, and I created support, and I invested in the process, because I would have died. I would have died if I didn't do that, right? I would have died if I didn't have the support that I had. I didn't say that lightly at the time to my mentors. I didn't say, hey, I would have died without you. I didn't say that lightly. I meant it. I wouldn't have known what to do. Right? And so, for some of you, maybe you're not in that situation, but for some of you, you are. You're thinking, I need answers. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about my separation. I don't know what to do about my reunion. And sometimes people will say, well, if I'm getting back together, if we're getting together, if we are in reunion, then we don't really have to work anymore. At that point, we're good. And I tell people, surprise, that's where all of the work needs to be even more amplified, right? So if you did it alone in separation, and then you're coming into reunion or close to reunion, you don't want to do it alone. You want to be connected. You want to be supported in that space. You want to have the tools that you need, right? And so I was going to save this for the end, but I want to tell you guys now 2 things. First of all, guys, if you go to our website, right? And so our website's linked below always. We have created literally an emergency kit. If you guys are in an emergency separation, check the kit out. Go to see it. It's going to give you something to do every day for your energy that's going to help you with all your own stuff. It's going to give you a whole webinar on separation, right? And what you do and all answers. 90% of your questions out there that you are giving us and doing all this, we stuffed into this webinar, right? And then there is a webinar on understanding the connection more deeply. And in all of them, we give you tools. We give you tips. They're recorded. You can use them as tools. And they clear stuff, and we do healing work, and we activate them. So when you guys say, where do I start? If you're in separation, start there, right? We are constantly creating opportunities for you. The other thing is we do have a really small amount of spots open still to work one-on-one, right? So if you guys are really interested and you've been asking us that too, how do I go about it? Email us. And when you get the response, right, email us at info@twinflamerevolution. That's also below. When you get the response, fill out the questionnaire. Start your process, right? But there is stuff. We are here constantly to support you. Don't have to do it by yourself, right? And so when people say, oh, harmonious union, you guys are in it, right? We were laughing with a friend the other day that prompted us really to put this out there. You know, she said, I think,
know who you are, girl.
I think people think that you guys just kind of spontaneously ended up in this situation. Right? And I think one of you actually messaged us that, and they were like, you were like, you know, I'm waiting for the kind of spontaneous moment, and it'll just kind of, and I was like, they were like, when did your spontaneous moment happen? I was like, no, there was no fucking spontaneous moment. There was a shit ton of work that activated and cleared and brought us closer to our 5th dimensional self and closer to our soul, closer to creation, closer to each other, and then it shifted our reality in the 3D, and it allowed us to ground this stuff.
Yeah, and I hear you guys going like, well, what did you focus on? Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you. The first thing was, yes, we both had mentors that we worked with together. Then we have people that we work with sometimes separately. Right? So it's very important to have the support that you need to get you through this. It didn't matter. Actually, when we started working with anyone, Dov and I we didn't have a lot of money. We made it work because my life was on the line. I didn't really care anymore about the money because I'm like, if I'm dead and I'm suffering like this, then I have nothing anyway. So I was kind of like, just max out my credit cards. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I need Nicole. And then I ended up making a ton of money after that because the universe was like, investing in self? I'm going to invest in you, baby. Because that's the way the universe is. As soon as you take that time to invest and commit to your process, to this process, right? So that was the first thing. Communication. Conscious communication, learning how to communicate, doing exercises, making sure that anything that's going on in my head is in front of her. We make space for each other, we hold space, we hear each other, we listen. That was not easy, by no means. Don't try this at home right now, because it wasn't easy in the beginning, but now it's like a part of our life, right? Being present. You guys have had a lot of abuse, neglect, abandonment, betrayal. When your twin isn't present, you're gonna get triggered in all your abandonment and all those places, because the one thing you want is that unconditional love from your twin. Both of you want it.
Yeah.
Right?
Owning our stuff.
Yeah.
Owning our stuff. Owning our responsibility, right? And when I say that, I don't just mean the things we do wrong. I mean, I had to take a hard look and go, oh shit. Right? Her response is her experience. Her things that she says to me, that's her experience. What I do with it, what you do, how you react, that's in your control, right? And I would have these experiences where I'm like, wow, this is my abandonment issue. This is my pain. This is my fear. This is my trauma. This is my trigger. And when you live in that energy, what you're doing is you're pulling them into that energy with you, and you're dancing in that energy. So a tip is, if you are acting out of a place of, or reacting out of a place of fear, pain, trigger, trauma, then the corresponding response is going to be in that kind, no matter what, even if you're not dealing with your twin. I had to see that. I had to move myself out of that energy, right? I had to work through my own blocks and restrictions, through my own traumas, my fears, and my beliefs, my programming that was not serving me anymore, and we all have it. We all have this programming that is not serving us anymore. And I had to move through that stuff. So owning my own stuff, not in a way of judgment, not in a way of feeling bad about myself. I don't want you guys to do an inventory of yourselves and start to feel bad about yourself. In fact, I want you to do the opposite.
Yes.
Release the judgment. Release the judgment about yourself. You know, I had to release the judgment about myself. I remember when I said to Nicole, I said, I can hear you, but I can't feel bad for that. I did my best and I didn't mean to hurt you. I couldn't own going into that abusive, because that is what my sort of weak spot was, is my self-worth. And I would lean towards saying, it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I fucked everything up. And that's the energy that I would go in with people. And I had to work really hard to come back into the center of, no, I did the best I could. I can do better next time, because next time I have information that I didn't have. And I can love myself in this moment of mistake. And that will allow other people to love you in that moment of mistake. Because when I would forgive myself and I would just say that I honored her and I heard her and I would do my best, I gave her the opportunity to also see that and to forgive me and create a change in the future.
Yes. The other thing is respecting your own boundaries and respecting your own needs and setting them with your partner. Like actually having a conversation about boundaries. So sometimes when things get heated between Dov and I, we have like, Mayday. It's like, this is where this is gonna go. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go take a walk till I calm down. Then we're gonna have a conversation. We're not gonna be mad for too long. You're gonna give me space when I need it, or whatever it looks like. Whatever it is that you need. See, I remember the day that like I realized like my needs are not Dov's needs, right? Like when we're going through something heavy, I need space. When Dov's going through something heavy, Dov might need me to like kind of just hold her, right? So really understanding each other, taking the time for each other to understand the other person, that maybe your needs aren't the same, and that's okay. And respecting here, it always starts with you, it's gonna end with you, right? So your respect for self is going to then go outward. So when Dov was talking about judgment, if you're judging your twin, you are definitely judging yourself. If you're judging people, you're judging yourself. We all do it. We were taught to judge.
Yes.
We were taught that we were supposed to judge ourselves, right? For our sins, that we're supposed to judge ourselves for all these different things, which disconnects us from love. There's no judgment. You're experiencing life, right? So when we begin to respect these things within ourselves, and we begin to look at the things that mean the world to us, and not just boundaries with our twin, but let me tell you something, if you're in union, boundaries with the world, right? We had to protect our union like a baby, because there's a lot of people that watch it. There's a lot of people that notice it, right? So there's a lot of love in it. And when there's a lot of love, there's a lot of energy that comes towards it, wants to see it. So you have to set boundaries with the world too, and it's okay to say no. I say it all the time. Learn how to say no. You don't need to show up for everyone, right? You need to show up for you. Yeah. And when the space is right, you can show up for whoever you choose to show up for. And usually when I ask how I can be of service for today, and I always pray to God, I'm like, how can I be of service today? Something will happen where I can be of service. Right? Just the door opens, I see it, I know that's what it is, and I was like, there it is, and then you can be of service, right?
I love that so much. So I was hearing you guys, so I wanted to kind of recap, right? So if you guys are in separation, working on your stuff, you're not powerless. There is so much to do, right? That's why I was talking about the tools, and I wanted to answer you guys about how you can get tools, right? And as I was saying, like, you can go and find those. I really recommend you start with the emergency kit if you're in the separation. There's so much answer. Working on yourself, understanding the connection deeply, understanding your stuff, owning your stuff, moving your stuff. And I hear some of you going, well, it's all their stuff.
I was there. I used to blame you for everything.
It's easy for us to do that. It's so easy. I was there. It's so easy for us to create that projection so that we don't have to look, especially if our twin is the one that is in that moment running, especially if the twin is using substances, especially if they are whatever, if they have a blaring, obvious, sort of frustrating behavior, then it's really easy for us to not look at ourselves. But then what happens is we really miss critical opportunity to work on our stuff. And then when they come back around, right, if they're able to, because the reason we were able to come back around to each other, it's because I excavated enough shit to create space for us to do that again. And I created that gap of space so Nicole could come into that gap of space and do that work also.
Yep.
And the more work we did, the more we were able to connect back to ourself, our higher self. Because as I was saying, that space above us, that soul energy, that is always harmonious. But we are not connected to that purity because of all of our programming and all of our junk and all of our stuff.
And our body.
Right? And our body and all of these things.
The body.
So clearing that as much as possible, and you can impact that a huge amount, right? You can impact that at least the 50% that is yours, plus at least another 10% on a conservative estimate for your twin, right? And so now you just created 60% of space. So I really invite you to take a look. If you think like there's nothing going on with you, right? I would challenge that, because we're in a human suit, and that human suit has a lot of impacts and a lot of energies and a lot of experiences and a lot of programming and a lot of ancestral things, and that is actually going to keep us. So as I was saying, if you're in that separation, you start to work on that, you start to shift the balance and create the focus. You also start to have more compassion for the other one. Instead of creating the idea of judgment, you keep it in your space, in your lane. You start to come back into the compassion energy. And that's really where the work is, to create that harmony already, to start creating that harmony now. So a lot of people say to us, there's nothing I can do. It's out of my control. I should just sit and wait. I hate that idea of surrender, or hate's a strong word. I find it incongruent. The idea of just surrender, where it's a passive process. So I talk about surrender a lot, and I talk about surrender in terms of my version of surrender. So for me, surrender is not a passive process. I'm going to lay on the couch and I'm going to sit here, and then eventually when my twin gets their shit together, they're going to come on over, right? It's not an interfering process. I don't try to interfere with other people's free will. We tell you guys this all the time. Don't manipulate, don't lie, don't play games, don't try to bend free will. That is not how you kind of create any sort of reunion or harmony. But I get my intention clear. I get myself clear. I get my why clear.
Yes.
And then I let the universe help me. So what I surrender is the how. What I surrender is, how am I going to say this to them? How am I going to get back together with them? How are we going to be okay? That how is not our business, it's the universe's, but I get clear and I work and I do my stuff, and I did that. So there's so much you can be doing in this moment. And if you are together, the work doesn't stop.
Yep.
It is where it really begins on a sort of interactive level, at a three-dimensionally interactive level. And that work is amazing. There should be another word for it, but I like the word work, because the thing is, I'm reclaiming it, because it is not bogging you down. It doesn't feel like shit. It's like breath. It's so needed.
When Dov said 3D work, I'm like, there's 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. We're just traveling, doing all kinds of things. Dov and I, oh my God, just the gifts and the being able to connect with not even speaking to each other. And the last thing I wanted to say was the intimacy, right? Into me, I see intimacy. Like really, and I talked about presence before, being present with one another, and I'm not talking about just sex, right? Because we've gone through droughts with sex, and for many of you, we've had emails come through about sex stuff, and I remember when Dov and I weren't having any sex and we were getting really stressed out, and actually when I look back now, it was when I was healing all my sex trauma, and I'm like, that makes sense. Why I really didn't want to have sex. I was in a lot of pain.
Right.
I was in a lot of pain. And what happens is that we make stories. Well, you know what? We used to be like this, and now we're not doing it. Something's wrong. And it's like, no, I'm healing deep wounds from past lives, sex trauma from past lives, from this life, assaults from this life, not feeling good about my body, hate, all the hatred I had, and all these things. And then you're like, well, I don't want to be close to you, because it was so hard for me to be intimate with anyone. And as that healed, and Dov held space for understanding why I couldn't be intimate, now I'm getting juicy about my stuff, I fell deeper in love with her. And then I trusted. And then I wanted her, right? So we have to take the stories out, the expectations of each other off the table. With twins, it's one of the highest ranking blocks that I see on a daily basis with all of my clients. It comes up every time, and it shows up and even shows up in our relationship as the word greed. Expectations. And it's not that I think any of you are greedy, but it's showing up because we expect so much out of ourselves. So much. It's like exhausting. and you expect so much out of the other person. It is exhausting. It doesn't give room for you guys to just be and to hold space for you just being. And when Dov and I really, when there's days where I'm stressed out and I start dumping it and I'm afraid that, like, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, she's gonna get stressed out too. And she's like, I hear you, I love you. And then all of a sudden, that just her saying, I hear you, I love you, and she's meaning it, I could see it and feel it. I'm like, and everything just shifts. I just need to say it. And then we're close, right? And so when it comes to what I just explained to you, I want you guys to know that in the beginning, Dov and I would be like, one of us would be down here, one of us would be here, and then we'd flip, and then we went here. And now we're like, we're here, where we're able to kind of contain it in this container. And we talk about her. I remember we used to laugh when we used to when we used to hear and watch different things, or people were talking about harmonious relationships with twins. We used to laugh in each other's face, like, you've got to be. And now I get it. Like, there's harmony. Right? We're balancing everything, and we're able to move through that. And I always talk of it as this dance, this beautiful dance, that even in all its complexity and all of the pain, at this point, I trust it so much. I'm so grounded in it that I don't budge from that place. So it stays grounded in that. And the peace and the joy that I have is more than any peace and joy I've ever had and experienced in my entire existence in this life. And maybe other lives.
And yeah, and I love what Nicole was saying. We've talked about the seesaw with you guys before. And it's like, so we still have these moments. They're smaller, they're shorter. We can contain them, and we still work real hard at it, right? So, you know, when people say, like, when do you stop working? For us, it just is part of our process. And now we're able to create what we want to create. And, you know, the last thing I want to say about intimacy is that, you know, the thing too is that your twin, it's the closest connection to yourself. So if you're in a state of rejecting self, so for people who have a lot of abuse, or people who are using substances, there is a running away from self. There is a rejection of self. So to be really, really close and intimate with you is going to be also really, really hard, and it requires them to pause and be with themselves in a way that they might not have the capacity at the moment. So really expanding your perception and understanding of what's happening is really, really important. So information about what is happening in your situation is gold, right? It's like when you understand what is happening in your exact situation, it revolutionizes what you're able to do, what you're able to shift, how you believe things, how you're letting the programming die away. I mean, for me, there is the difference between walking through a hallway in this situation with the lights off. I say it to people all the time, you know, with the lights off, blindfold on, or with a guide and the lights on. And I am never too proud or in my ego to have some level of support behind me, you know, and I really do feel that we don't have to do these things alone, right? So that's why we do what we do, and we're constantly creating. We have such super exciting stuff to tell you guys about this month that's coming up in ways that we're going to really expand this revolution in this community and allow you guys to be supported at whatever level that you want to put in, time-wise or investment, it really from a very low level to a high level, so that you're really held. We're really with you guys. And the reason that we have fully dedicated ourselves to this and to really helping other people, you know, as well with abundance and things like that, is that, you know, we have done this decade of dance and then our whole life of work, and we've gained all of these skills, and we know that they've all been designed to serve you, and they've all been designed to share, which is why we're here and we're sharing it with you. So we love you guys with all of our heart. And if this video was something that you liked, please share it with people you think will benefit. Like in the comments, and make sure you stay subscribed. And if you're not over on our Facebook page, we don't only talk about twin flame stuff there. However, there is loads of videos that are going to be coming out there as well. And every Sunday we have our Sunday sermon, which is really just something that's awesome to invite everybody to watch. We are away from that this weekend because it's a holiday. We hope you all enjoy your holiday weekend.
Yes.
And we hope that this was helpful. We love you guys so much.
We love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.